So a couple months after I got this car and brought it home, I went up to the swap meet in Portland, and I went into this one booth where I saw these headlights. A guy came out and started asking me questions and asked me what I was working on and what I was looking for. And I told him I had a 29 Dodge, and he said, "Oh, you should talk to Tom." Apparently this guy named Tom has his parents' first car, which was a 29 Dodge sedan, just like this one. And so him and I got chatting, and he says, yeah, he's got lots of parts. And it turns out he lives in Redmond, Oregon, which is about 20 minutes from where I live. So him and I started to become friends, and I'd go over to his house, and he let me paw all over his car. And I was able to take a ton of measurements, and I made a long list of all the actual measurements off of Tom's car, so I can get this car back to where it's supposed to be. Because these cars actually got a lot of their structure and their stability from the frames. Since this one has been off the frame for so long and moved who knows how many times, it's all out of whack. He happened to have a bare frame sitting there that he was going to use for another project, so I was able to go and take measurements on the actual frame that this body originally came from the factory, which was huge because he traced out the front part of the frame where it starts to curve in for the cowl. So he crawled under the frame and he traced it all out, and I was able to get measurements and basically make a template off of it. And from that template I was able to make a driver's side template. So now I have these two templates that I can use to make the frame follow the line of what the frame is actually supposed to be. So since the body is curved, it's really hard to get an accurate measurement with my tape measure from where the center axle is going to be to where the front mount holes are. Since I know the center part of the axle is right at this bolt coming down where the fenders used to mount, I just attach the string to that bolt in the middle of the wheel well, and then I can run it all the way up to the firewall. And then I just run my string along the tape measure, and that's where I get my measurement. Looks like we're right at about 81.5. So after taking a ton of measurements and figuring out where 81.5 inches is on the frame, then that's where the front mount is going to go. So I made that mark, made it square, and stretched the template out over it so I can make a bunch more marks. And you can see there's a couple of bends in here. There's one right there where I made that mark where it starts to bend in towards the body, and then it goes straight for a little while, and then you see it bends back out right about there, and then it goes straight for a little while, and then bends one more time back out right there. And then here's where the front mounting hole is. So you can see from where the templates are, the curvature of the front end of the frame, where it curves in to match the curve of the body up to the cowl where those front mounts are. Now I made 3 lines where I'm going to cut about 1/4 of an inch apart, and I might need to do more, but this will get me started at least. And on this back one back here, you can see where it starts to bend, but it's a gradual bend on both sides of that mark. So I made the other 2 cut lines on either side of that mark about 1/4 inch apart, and on this one I did the same thing here. So I got those frame rails bent up to where it's pretty close to the templates I made. It's pretty much dead on. It's a little bit off, but it's good enough. And I think they're gonna work. But I just noticed a problem. If you look at the frame rails, they curve in, but then they curve back out. So the front of the frame rails aren't where they need to be, and the mounting holes aren't where they need to be either. So I went and looked at some pictures of an original 29 Dodge frame. I noticed it bulbs out right in front of the rear wheels, but then it starts to pinch back in right before the spot where we measured for these templates. So although the templates are correct, the mistake I made was the back part of these templates running parallel to each other. It actually should be pinched in a little bit more. Time to do some more head scratching. All right, well, It's wintertime, 2020. I was actually getting inspired at New Year's to go back and take a look at the 1920s. This thing has been burning on my mind for a while now, and I kind of got inspired again to work on it. So I think it's time that I put some time in to try to get this frame done to make this car at least a roller, because I do have that other engine that I want to rebuild and pop in this thing. And since it's the 20s, I think I ought to get my 20s car finished. So after going back and watching the footage from 6 months ago before I got stumped and put this thing on the back burner, I kind of got an idea. I think what I'm going to do is figure out the center line all the way down the frame. And I'm going to weld in a piece of rebar so that way I can get the frame rails to pinch in to be exactly 30 and 1/16 inches at those mounting holes, which is where it should be based on the measurements from the original frame. And then I need to figure out at what point in the body do I need to start pinching those frames in to bring them in. So if you look at my notes here, it says at the bottom of the A pillar it's supposed to be 38 inches. At the bottom of the B pillar, it's supposed to be 46.5 inches. So somewhere between the A pillar and the B pillar, I have to find where it's 40.5, and that's where I'm gonna start to pinch in this frame. So if I measure from that screw over there to this screw here, that's where it's right about 40.5 inches. And then I also measured from that center of the front mounting hole back to this point where I marked off 40.5 inches. And I measured it on both sides and it was about 28.5 inches. I got these lines all marked up on both sides. And here's my center line brace. That goes all the way out here to the front. All right, I think I got it right where it needs to be. I got this ratchet strap pulling these together so that the mounting points are 30 and 1/16 inches from each other. I've got this toolbox on here for weight to kind of keep the front end down on the ground. Measuring just where our mounting point is here to that center. You can see we're right at 13 5/8 over here on the passenger side. Same thing over here on the driver's side. Now right to where this mount is, 13 5/8. That's pretty dang close. I think I'm gonna call it good.
Sorry when I said that there is nothing left for you to say. You could possibly ever make me stay, I won't stay. My dad said I might change your mind, and mom knew that it was just a matter of time. Sorry when I say that I'm long gone, long gone, long gone, long gone. It was all wrong and now I'm long gone, long gone.
It looks like it's gonna line up with the mounts pretty good, but the problem is there's this angle iron I put in here temporarily for the floor, and I think that's gonna hit the rails. So Cody and I made an executive decision. We're gonna take the floor out so we can get the body where it needs to go and then build the floor around it, which means I'm gonna take all this crap out of here. Good times. That's what Cody's for. Right, Cody? Right.
Long gone, long gone, long gone, long gone. I thought that I was ready, I was wrong.
So I think what I'm gonna do is temporarily tack this bolt on right here, and that'll be my stud for the mount to sit on.
Sorry when I say that now I know I won't make this mistake. One thing's for sure, I know what it takes. I've learned a lot, I've got no regrets. When I walk out, 'cause the real won't forget cut first. Sorry when I say that I'm long gone, long gone, long gone, long gone. It was all wrong and now I'm long gone, long gone, long gone, long gone. I thought that I was ready, I was wrong. let me play my music loud.
Well, I finally wrestled that thing on there. Man, this body is really out of shape. But I'm glad I'm doing it to the form of the frame because I can sort of manipulate the bottom of it to get it back to where it's supposed to be. I was able to get both bolts to go through and it lined up pretty well. And checking the alignment of the rear differential to that center bolt in the wheel well, it looks to be pretty close to dead on. So I think I may have looked out and found a winner. I'm starting to suspect that where the door is, where it goes into the cowl on the driver's side, has been pulled out a little bit because you can see it's really far away from the frame. And if that's the shape the original frame is, that body line is supposed to bolt to the frame. So I think I might need to suck that driver's side in a little bit. And then also I need to build mounts for the back part of the body because right now it's just sitting on this brace that I put across here for the floor. But in order to do that, I have to actually measure how far the body is from the frame on the rear to center it up and get it exactly dead center on the frame. I might just temporarily tack in some mounts there for now, just to kind of get the body sort of in place and be able to transport this thing. And then another check of the level, pretty level. I'm going to call that good enough. It's a little bit high on the passenger side, but it's within the black lines. So for me, that's within tolerance. I'd like it to be dead center, and maybe I can get some weight on there and sort of manipulate it, and as I move the body around, maybe it'll adjust itself, which is what I'm hoping for, but I'm not going to worry too much about it. So then now the next step is figuring out how to mount this front section. That front section, I'm going to Z up, but I have to measure how far in front of the firewall I want to put it because I don't want it to be too long, but it can't be too short either. I'm kind of, if I'm going to dream out loud, I want to either put a Cummins motor in there or a Hemi motor in there. For right now, I'm going to put that small block Chevy in there because that's what I have. But that'll be another video. So anyway, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe. Check out my other videos. Like it. Give it a thumbs up. And share with your friends. And I'll see you next time.
You never let me play. You never saw my way.